One introduction ROSEP view: the United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building, for just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove, and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. ROSEP view: purple air PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, or ROSEP, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this ROSEP podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025, and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning wood. The adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives, and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Webisode 57DHXZR, November 24, 2025 Nebraska, Affordable Clean Energy Makeovers for Buildings. In Webisode 57DHXZR 1, Arizona 2, A California Coal, Shipping 3 California Democrats, may be wiretapped 4 Nebraska Lincoln Clean Energy Makeovers, including heat pumps for buildings that do not price out the locals. 5 Brazil COP30 A group of nations led by Colombia and the Netherlands offer hope the creation of a fossil fuel roadmap outside the COP process may establish a trading bloc that could begin to sanction nations and banks that refuse to wind down fossil fuels. 6 Europe, Belgium, Britain, Croatia, Denmark, Estonia, France, Germany, and Poland a draft or volunteers. Russian threat prompts urgent debate in Europe. 7 Saudi Arabia, the real reason Trump is fawning over the Saudi Arabia ruler. 8 South Africa, Johannesburg meeting of G20, can the world move on without the US? G20 leaders gave it a shot. Headlines, main content. 1 Arizona Phoenix Wiretapped view the Trump FBI. It began investigating Stephanie Hockridge in April 2020 for fraudulently obtaining COVID relief funds. This case of fraud apparently did not involve more people than Stephanie Hockridge and her husband Nathan Reese, who both stood to gain financially. A former news anchor is going to prison for 10 years because she used her role in the Paycheck Protection Program loan scheme to gain financially, it seems. She obtained money for herself when she was one founder of a lender service company called Blue Acorn. The news anchor was found guilty of 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, but acquitted on 4 counts of wire fraud in order to pay $64 million in restitution. Wiretapped view AI overview. Nathan Reese, the husband of Stephanie Hockridge, is scheduled to be sentenced on November 21st following his plea deal in the fraud case related to the Paycheck Protection Program PPP. He has pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and the sentencing is part of the legal proceedings stemming from the fraudulent activities of the couple. The FBI started investigating Stephanie Hockridge in connection with her involvement in a fraud scheme related to the Paycheck Protection Program PPP. In April 2020, Hockridge and her husband were the 2 founders of Blue Acorn, a financial technology company which allegedly submitted false and fraudulent loan applications to obtain COVID-19 relief funds. ABC 15 Arizona. Stephanie Hockridge worked at KNXV-TV ABC 15 in Phoenix, Arizona as a news anchor from 2011 to 2018. She was known for her significant presence in the local news and her role in the Paycheck Protection Program loan scheme, which led to her recent legal troubles. Stephanie Hockridge, a former news anchor, was sentenced to 10 years in prison for conspiracy to commit wire fraud related to a pandemic-era Paycheck Protection Program PPP loan scheme. Hockridge, who was one founder of a lender service company called Blue Acorn, was found guilty of 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, but acquitted on 4 counts of wire fraud. The court ordered Hockridge to pay nearly $64 million in restitution and serve supervised release for 2 years. The case highlights the serious consequences of fraud during a time of national crisis and the importance of integrity in financial dealings. From the article headline, former news anchor sentenced to 10 years in prison for pandemic fraud. The New York Times. 2 California, Oakland coal shipping activism against coal shipping began from a story in a Utah newspaper. A stand against coal could push Oakland toward bankruptcy after Oakland, California reneged on a contract allowing coal shipments. A Kentucky company went under. Courts say the city must now pay hundreds of millions of dollars. Port activities have long been a driver of the Oakland economy, but the city ultimately tried to block a plan to ship coal from its terminal. Excerpts edited by Wiretapped for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, November 24, 2025. It could turn out to be the costliest story ever written in a Utah weekly newspaper. In April 2015, the Richfield Reaper covered a new initiative to export Utah coal through a port in Oakland, California, and across the Pacific Ocean. The story found its way to Bay Area environmentalists, who quickly circulated the piece and were outraged that the Oakland waterfront could become a conduit for shipping fossil fuels overseas. What followed was a decade-long political and legal saga that ultimately could push the struggling city of Oakland toward bankruptcy. Port activities have long been a driver of the Oakland economy. Oakland has 444,000 residents and has the 9th busiest port in the United States, which unloads containers from Asia and ships American cargo across the Pacific. The Oakland seaport activities also have been a draw for progressive activists, given that the port serves as the East Bay link to the world. A decade ago, when environmental protesters banded together and convinced the city to renege on a contract allowing coal shipments from an Oakland terminal, it set off a chain of events that undermined a Kentucky coal company and left the city potentially liable for hundreds of millions of dollars. Since then, judges have ruled multiple times against Oakland. In 2013, Oakland authorized a local developer, Phil Tegami, to build a $250 million shipping terminal. Tegami made a contract to ship coal. No coal. In Oakland, a grassroots organization was formed to fight the shipping terminal. Local activists and environmental groups, including the Sierra Club and Earth Justice, lobbied the Oakland City Council to stop coal from entering the city. Hundreds of no-coal demonstrators showed up to city council meetings. Though coal would not be burned in Oakland, toxic dust can be created when pieces jostle against each other, such as in a rail car or when conveyed onto a ship. Environmentalists were adamantly opposed to Oakland contributing to the use of more fossil fuels, which release greenhouse gas emissions that worsen climate change. City officials had already approved a contract to export bulk commodities from the terminal, and nowhere did it say coal was prohibited. Last month, a bankruptcy judge of the Western District of Kentucky ruled that the Oakland improper and unjustified conduct significantly disrupted and burdened the Kentucky-based company that had been contracted to ship coal out of the Oakland terminal, forcing it into bankruptcy. The judge suggested the damages were between $654 million before more interest what the coal company is pushing for in $230 million. What an expert for the city of Oakland estimated the coal company had lost. A federal district judge is reviewing the ruling, and the city is urging him to reject it. A professor at University of California College of the Law San Francisco said that if Oakland must pay damages, it could likely do so in installments over a decade. Because it is a municipality, it could raise taxes or issue bonds paying interest to plaintiffs and bondholders, but neither might be possible because the city has so little cash. Oakland has struggled with a yawning budget deficit since the pandemic, and the city council recently approved cuts in a 2-year budget to close a $265 million gap. Still, environmentalists said that they and city leaders were right to fight the coal project. Anyone who understands the risks of climate change, as well as coal-related air pollution, cannot in their right mind want a ship and then burn so much coal. A spokesperson said Tegami said he expects cargo ships could depart from Oakland as soon as 2027 carrying coal overseas. 3. California ROSEP view. Some California Democrats may be concerned that they are being wiretapped by the Trump FBI, or the Trump FBI attempting to link other California Democrats to around 3 people who are either indicted or named in a case of taking campaign funds for personal use. Is the Trump FBI attempting to prove that other California Democrats are associated with this crime? Or are these Trump FBI attempts at linkage to more Democrats not based on facts that can be proven true in a court of law? Are these Trump FBI attempts at linkage to California Democrats like investigations of mortgage rate fraud charges recently conveniently and flimsily done only against Senate and House Democrats that Trump has a personal vengeance crusade against? Since Greg Campbell has decided to shut down his lobbying firm, this investigation may seem to be expanding to include a political consultant who also worked as a lobbyist at the same time, which appears on first glance to possibly be conflict of interest. ROSEP contends that wiretapping itself, when one is innocent of any indictable offense, also seems like an invasion of privacy that should be justified by the Trump FBI, proving in a court of law that this wiretapping was necessary. ROSEP View AI overview. Dana Williamson was accused of fraudulently obtaining approximately $225,000 from a dormant political campaign account. The Dana Williamson alleged co-conspirators include Sean McCluskey, the Xavier Becerra former chief of staff, and registered lobbyist Greg Campbell. The investigation into the Williamson activities has been ongoing for over 3 years, with the Office of the U.S. Attorney and the FBI playing key roles in uncovering the fraud. She allegedly conspired with others to divert these funds for personal use, creating a scheme that involved falsifying contracts and filing false tax returns. Dana Williamson, a former chief of staff to Governor Gavin Newsom, faces 23 felony charges related to a scheme involving campaign funds. Williamson has been a significant player in California politics for years. Greg Campbell has decided to shut down his lobbying firm. Many in the political circles of Sacramento anxious about the potential fallout. OneNews.com. ROSEP View AI overview. Dana Williamson worked for Gavin Newsom as his chief of staff from January 2nd, 2023 until December 16, 2024. During her tenure, she was involved in various significant political and administrative roles within the California government. Xavier Becerra is an American attorney and politician who served as the 25th United States Secretary of Health and Human Services from March 19, 2021 to January 20th, 2025. He has recently announced his candidacy for governor of California in the 2026 election. The Becerra political career includes serving as the state attorney general of California prior to his role in the Biden administration. From the article headline FBI letters send shivers through the California political inner circle, the New York Times. For Nebraska, Lincoln clean energy makeovers, including heat pumps for buildings that do not price out the locals in a struggling area of Lincoln. A program pays for repairs and energy efficiency upgrades in rental buildings. In return, landlords must keep rents affordable. Heat pumps on the roof of the region apartments in Lincoln, Nebraska. The New York Times series 50 states, 50 fixes heat pumps on the roof of the region apartments in Lincoln, Nebraska. Excerpts edited by ROSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, November 18, 2025. When a retired history teacher who owns rental properties throughout Lincoln, Nebraska bought the troubled region apartments in 2021, his main concern was the quality of life. The region was nearly a century old. The address was the subject of hundreds of 911 calls. Crime was spilling over. So he applied to a special city program that provides grants to help pay for building improvements in exchange for his promise to keep rents affordable. The region got new plumbing and sewer lines among other repairs, and the 911 calls plummeted. Its makeover also helped. The Climate 53 electric heat pumps, the most energy efficient way to heat and cool homes, were recently installed, replacing energy hungry electric window heating and cooling units that often failed. The city of Lincoln has helped weatherize and repair many buildings since 2023 as part of a program to rehabilitate decrepit buildings and improve their energy efficiency without pricing out tenants. The building owner of the region also used the program for upgrades at the Palisades next door, which now has 40 heat pumps, one for each apartment. According to the energy services manager at the Lincoln Electric System, the heat pumps cut the annual carbon emissions of the Palisades building by 176,000 pounds thanks to reduced energy use, and electric bills at the building dropped by an average of $260 per unit a year. A woman with a cat who currently receives disability benefits pays $720 monthly in rent and said similar apartments elsewhere in Lincoln cost $1,100. Her monthly electric bill is $60. The rental rehab program, part of the Lincoln Climate Action Plan, covers buildings in a historic low-income neighborhood called south of downtown. About 96% of residents there are renters, often living in substandard housing. The city wanted to save the buildings, reduce their energy consumption, and lower tenant utility bills. Tenants were worried that fixes would lead to unaffordable rents, yet both they and their landlords shared many of the same complaints. Tenants were telling us their units were not airtight, said the Lincoln chief sustainability officer. They were not insulated well enough. They were cold, they were hot, and the Landlords were telling us that they did not have the money to upgrade the units. The Lincoln director of urban development devised a plan. The city could use a tool tax increment financing to put future tax payments from building owners into a special fund that would help pay for repairs. Landlords would get grants of up to $15,000 per unit for things like new windows, insulation, foundation repairs, and roofs, along with access to incentives for heat pumps in exchange for the grants. Landlords had to accept federal Section 8 housing vouchers, and while rents could be raised after the repairs, they had to be kept below the federal government fair market rate for a number of years. Currently 20. When the program began, city officials were not sure if there would be any interest, but within the first year, 300 applications from landlords poured in, requiring officials to create a wait list, said the Lincoln urban development manager. The city said it was on track to meet its goal of rehabilitating 1,000 units within a decade, and as part of the program, 180 heat pumps have so far been installed, along with other energy efficiency upgrades, including heat pump water heaters at several rehab buildings in the area. Residents said they now had reliable air conditioning and heat and new windows that kept out icy air and snow. The executive director of NeighborWorks Lincoln, a nonprofit that helps administer the program, said he had initially feared that the program would result in much higher rents, but his concerns soon subsided. Tenants were in updated, more efficient apartments. Property owners were making improvements that otherwise would not have been made, and the city was making a huge investment in the area. According to the city, rents for units rehabilitated during the first year of the program were on average $250 below the federally set fair market rent. Last year, the city added a requirement that rents below the fair market rate cannot be raised more than 5%. We make refinements as we learn. 5. Brazil COP30, another COP wrecked by fossil fuel interests and the cowardice of our leaders. But there is another way. The fingerprints of Russia and Saudi Arabia are all over the decision text in Brazil, but a group of nations led by Colombia and the Netherlands offer hope. Wiretapped key excerpt: the creation of a fossil fuel roadmap outside the COP process may establish a trading bloc that could begin to sanction nations and banks that refuse to wind down fossil fuels. Excerpts edited by Wiretapped for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization, The Guardian. This writer, Genevieve Gunner, is the founding director of End Climate Silence and the author of The Language of Climate Politics. November 24, 2025, the 30th conference of the party's COP30, the annual climate summit of all nations party to the UNFCCC, just ended. The conference was a failure. Its outcome, the decision text known as the Global Mutireo or Global Collective Effort, is in essence a form of climate denial. In 2023, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) determined that the world had already developed or planned to develop too much fossil fuel to be able to halt global heating at 2C. It acknowledged that the capital assets built up around fossil fuels must be stranded, abandoned, and not used if warming was to be limited to 2C, but the COP30 decision text ignores all this. Indeed, it never even mentions fossil fuels. This failure is all the more bitter because COP30 had initially sent out so many hopeful signals that it would finally tackle the transitioning away from fossil fuels pledge from COP28. China did not block the text on the roadmap to fossil fuel phase out, but neither did it fight to make sure it was included. One bright spot of COP30 is that Colombia and the Netherlands, backed by 22 nations, will independently advance a roadmap to fossil fuel phase out, beginning with a conference in April 2026. This conference could be a game changer. UN rules require all COP decision texts to be approved unanimously, giving the petrostates veto power over global climate politics. The creation of a fossil fuel roadmap outside the COP process may establish a trading bloc that could begin to sanction nations and banks that refuse to wind down fossil fuels. Such a bloc will have no power if its leaders are not forced to resolve their ambivalence about phasing out fossil fuels, and that is where you and I come in. All of us must do our part and subject world leaders to extreme and relentless public pressure. The challenge of stranding potentially trillions of dollars in fossil capital and rebuilding the world is enormous. Of course, global leaders and officials will take the easier, cowardly road if they can get away with it. As we cross the 1.5C threshold into uncharted climatic territory, we must make them fight wholeheartedly for fossil fuel phase out. In the end, it is up to us to create a global politics that will finally save the world for our children. 6. Europe, Belgium, Britain, Croatia, Denmark, Estonia, France, Germany, and Poland. A draft or volunteers. Russian threat prompts urgent debate in Europe, with Russia looming. Government's race to rebuild armed forces that shrank after the Cold War, grappling with hard issues of economics, politics, and military strategy. Finnish army conscripts at a training exercise in Helsinki. Finland maintained conscription after the fall of the Soviet Union. Excerpts edited by Wiretapped for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, November 24, 2025. The drones that have veered near airports in Germany, Poland, Belgium, and Estonia, and frequent incidents of sabotage are chilling reminders of how the Russia relentless war in Ukraine could easily spill into Europe. The threat has put intense pressure on countries across the continent and in Britain to quickly expand the ranks of full-time soldiers and reservists that shrank during the post-Cold War peace. Yet the question of how to recruit hundreds of thousands of service members is prompting fierce and soul-searching debates. After bitter disagreements that touched on economic politics and military strategy, the German government decided this month to forego mandatory military service in favor of a volunteer force. Although it left the door open to a draft if the number of recruits falls short, Croatia took a different path and a few weeks earlier restored conscription, which had been abolished 18 years ago. In Poland, plans are underway for every man to go through military training as the president of Poland, Donald Tusk, aims to more than double its army to 500,000 from 200,000 in Denmark, which wants to grow its forces from 70,000 to 200,000 by 2030 extended its draft to include women and prolonged the service period to 11 months from 4. Other countries vow to do a better job of attracting volunteers to fulfill national targets and commitments to NATO. France announced plans to roll out an optional military service program next year, and Britain hired a private recruitment company to create a streamlined process in 2027 to rebuild its depleted ranks. Advertisement skip advertisement, hashtag after story ad 2. Yet, even so, the outlook for meeting targets is dim. Less than 1/3 of European Union citizens said they were willing to fight for their country in a war, according to a Gallup poll in 2024, more than 2 years after Russia invaded Ukraine. The poll found that in the United States, where conscription ended in 1973 during the Vietnam War, when anti-war protesters were turning "I want you" posters into "I want out" signs, 42% were willing to pick up arms on one side of the argument. Serving in the military is a civic duty and a binding force and experience that transcends geographical, racial, ethnic, and class differences. It is also the fairest way of distributing the burden of defense, supporters say. On the other, conscription has no place in free societies and comes at an enormous economic cost, compelling citizens to work in jobs that divert them from making the best use of their skills and talents. In France, the High Commission for Strategy and Planning estimated that training 70,000 volunteers for 6 months would cost 1.7 billion euros annually, requiring 6 months of military service for roughly 300,000 young men would cost 7.2 billion euros, including women would double the numbers. In any case, fulfilling troop targets remains a struggle. In Germany, 20% of officer and non-commissioned officer posts were unfilled last year. Any plan to solve the problem depends on political will and popular support. 7 Saudi Arabia excerpts edited by Wiretapped for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. Plenty of U.S. presidents have talked about freeing America from its dependence on foreign oil and keeping foreign petrostates from messing with our economy. That is what Drill Baby Drill was all about. This is something different now. America is the leading producer of oil and natural gas on the planet, and instead of trying to separate from the Persian Gulf petrostates, Trump is reshaping America to look more like them. The Persian Gulf petrostates are top-down, iron-fisted, resource-rich, and more than willing to flash those resources as weapons. From the article headline Opinion, the real reason Trump is fawning over the Saudi Arabia ruler. The New York Times. 8 South Africa Johannesburg meeting of G20. Can the world move on without the U.S.? G20 leaders gave it a shot with the United States boycotting the summit. Other nations sought to strike new deals, and some took a tougher tone with Trump. Wiretapped. View Wikipedia excerpt. The G20, or Group of 20, is an intergovernmental forum comprising 19 sovereign countries, the European Union (EU) and the African Union (AU). Wiretapped. View AI overview. The G20 summit in 2025 took place on November 22nd to 23, 2025 in Johannesburg, South Africa. This summit marked the first time the G20 has been hosted on the African continent, with South Africa assuming the presidency from December 1st, 2024 to November 2025. Wiretapped. View briefly. 1. The United States president did not attend the G20 summit. 2. The final G20 declaration included many terms that Trump officials had opposed in meetings ahead of the summit, among them just energy transitions, climate change, and gender equality. 3. G20 Ukrainian allies quickly had to pull together a meeting on the sidelines to discuss a contentious American-backed peace plan for the war with Russia. For the size of its economy means that the United States still has great influence over critical global issues like Trump-U.S. opposition to clean energy and renewable energy, and the U.S. has great influence because of Trump trade and Trump potential wars and Trump lack of support for the Ukraine war against Russian aggression. Excerpts edited by Wiretapped for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, November 23, 2025. President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa could not contain his laughter. A reporter asked him to confirm reports that the United States had dropped its boycott and asked to participate in the Group of 20 summit in Johannesburg just 2 days before it was set to start. The South African leader barely uttered a word before breaking down in laughter, eventually composing himself and saying he had received a note from the Americans about a change of mind earlier. The subsequent scolding from the White House would have set off slight panic in the South African government and perhaps drawn an explanation from Mr. Ramaphosa for his departure from diplomatic decorum. But with Trump boycotting the annual meeting over his contention that South Africa is persecuting its white minority, some countries were taking a tougher tone on the United States, the largest economy in the world, and trying to show that life can go on. That meant shaking hands, signing deals, deepening alliances, and making pledges at slickly produced live events. The G20 should send a clear message that the world can move on with or without the U.S. Ronald Lamola, the South Africa foreign minister, said at a forum hosted by Bloomberg before the summit. We will mark them absent and continue with the business. South Africa declined a Trump administration request that Mr. Ramaphosa ceremonially hand over the summit to the acting ambassador for the United States, which hosts next the 2026 G20. Ramaphosa would not hand over to a junior diplomat, the government said, adding that American officials could instead come by its foreign ministry later in the week for the handover at the summit. Mr. Ramaphosa pushed ahead with an agenda that put African interests at the fore. He broke with tradition by starting the 2-day meeting with the adoption of a final declaration. Such documents are normally issued at the end, and he said that the declaration had unanimous agreement among the members present despite an objection from the foreign minister of Argentina. That country, several participants said, has championed the Trump interests in 2025. We note with deep respect the views expressed by Argentina. Mr. Ramaphosa responded, we will with great respect move ahead with the accepted declaration. As the G20, the final declaration included many terms that Trump officials had opposed in meetings ahead of the summit, among them just energy transitions, climate change, and gender equality. I think the big message coming out of this G20 is that despite the geopolitical bullying that exists, despite the power of the U.S., that countries can come together and still get stuff done, said Nabil Ahmeda, senior director at Oxfam America, who attended the summit. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil told reporters after the meeting ended on Sunday that although Mr. Trump has been promoting unilateralism, I think multilateralism will win. But Lula and his fellow leaders are under no illusion that they can simply thumb their noses at Trump. The size of its economy means that the United States still has great influence over critical global issues issues like renewable energy trade and wars. Brazil is still grappling with high tariffs Washington imposed. South Africa is in the middle of difficult negotiations with the Trump administration to try to get its own 30% tariff reduced, and the final G20 declaration is not binding, but it can influence the policy decisions of International Monetary Fund on the first day of the summit, when Ukrainian allies quickly had to pull together a meeting on the sidelines to discuss a contentious American-backed peace plan for the war. With Russia in some ways the Trump-America retreat has allowed other nations to look past their problems with each other. The European leaders announced a new minerals pact with South Africa and pledged billions of dollars toward renewable energy development. In Africa, we are a partner that plays by the rules. European Union President Ursula von der Leyen said we listen to our partners. Headlines: The New York Times, November 24, 2025. Brazil Wiretapped. View: former Brazilian president arrested for coup attempt, friend of Trump. From the article headline, The Bolsonaro arrest exposes limits to the Trump power. The New York Times. Europe. Trump tariffs, why Europe and the United States are still haggling on trade. The New York Times. Germany, how one German toymaker made money despite U.S. tariffs. The New York Times. Medicine, these hospitals figured out how to slash C-section rates. The New York Times. Music, Jimmy Cliff, singer who helped bring reggae to global audience, dies at 81. The New York Times. Why the crypto slide is rattling Wall Street. The New York Times. Trump tariffs, trade chaos lead small businesses to rethink U.S. relationships. The New York Times. Trump vanity. Trump welcomes the AP photographers, its reporters not so much. The New York Times. Ukraine. The Putin win-win, take a Russia-friendly peace deal or fight. On the New York Times. Ukraine. Trump live updates. U.S. officials are expected to press on with Ukraine talks. The New York Times. Ukraine. Why a man with U.S. ties fought for Russia and Ukraine. The New York Times. Universities billionaires have a bigger role in higher education under President Trump. The New York Times. Headlines: The New York Times, November 23, 2025. Brazil Wiretapped. View: Jair Bolsonaro, former president convicted of staging a coup, a friend of Trump recently sent to prison. From the article headline, How a sabotaged ankle monitor ended the Bolsonaro house arrest. The New York Times. Mamdani and Trump tamped down fears over National Guard in New York City. The New York Times. Mamdani meeting with Trump scrambled the MAGA sphere. The New York Times. Music Wiretapped. View template of how to appeal to rural voters. From the article headline, How Shabuzi won the hearts of country music fans. The New York Times. Republicans Wiretapped. View Nazis. From the article headline, Why Republicans are fighting about the Nazis. The New York Times. Ukraine. Can the world move on without the U.S.? G20 leaders gave it a shot. The New York Times. Ukraine. Rubio insists U.S. authored the Ukraine peace plan. The New York Times. Ukraine. Trump live updates. U.S. officials push for Ukraine peace deal. The New York Times. Ukraine and U.S. will meet about the Trump peace plan to end war with Russia. The New York Times. Ukraine. Zelensky is under pressure from Trump and domestically. The New York Times. Venezuela top U.S. military officer to visit Caribbean as Trump pressures Venezuela. The New York Times. Headlines: The Guardian, November 24, 2025. Actor Jill Freud, love actually actor and inspiration for Lucy in Narnia books, dies aged 98. Movies: The Guardian. Consumers affordability. Trump touts cheap groceries ahead of Thanksgiving. The reality is a mixed plate U.S. economy. The Guardian. Consumers, what is the latest Black Friday boycott? And will it work? Black Friday. The Guardian. COP30 UN warns world losing climate battle, but fragile COP30 deal keeps up the fight. COP30. The Guardian. Democrat senator. First thing U.S. senator criticizes the Republican silence on the Trump violent threats against Democrats. U.S. News. The Guardian. Democrats. Why did young men move left in the November 2025 U.S. elections? Corey Alpert. The Guardian. Democrats and Republican foes alike targeted for prosecution. U.S. judge throws out criminal cases against James Comey and Letitia James. The Guardian. Exercise the fascia secret. How does it affect your health? And should you loosen it up with a foam roller life and style? The Guardian. Internet. U.S. senators call for investigation of scam ads on Facebook and Instagram. U.S. News. The Guardian. Medicine. Estrogen for menopause criticized by medical professionals. Doctors respond to data-free decision over menopause hormone therapy. It is not true. Trump administration. The Guardian. Medicine. People who stop using Mounjaro suffer reversal of health benefits, says study. Health. The Guardian. Music. Jimmy Cliff, Jamaican reggae singer, actor, and cultural icon, dies aged 81. Jimmy Cliff. The Guardian. Trump Epstein. Fallout as Epstein questions linger. Trump falls back into familiar habit, lashing out at female reporters. Donald Trump. The Guardian. Trump Justice Investigations. Pentagon says it is investigating Senator Mark Kelly after he joined lawmakers telling military to refuse illegal orders. Trump Justice Investigations. The Trump DOJ focus on mega goals harms other investigations. Experts warn U.S. politics. The Guardian. TV. Fox Corp chief told Sean Hannity that Trump could not go on air in 2020 if he attacked network. Fox News. The Guardian. Ukraine. The Trump peace plan was a pro-Kremlin abomination whose failure is a glimmer of hope for Ukraine. Rajan Menon. The Guardian. Ukraine makes significant changes to U.S. peace plan. Sources say Ukraine. The Guardian. Women horror stories of a feminized workplace mask the real crisis in male identity. Finn McKay. The Guardian.
Red Green Fox here. The quick red green fox jumped over the barriers to clean air. Red Green Fox here. Ready to sing to you the names of the 2025 major wood-burning biomass industry subsidy opponents. 1. Biofuel Watch. 2. Bulkley Valley Stewardship Coalition of British Columbia, Canada. 3. Comite Schoen Luft, which means Beautiful Air Committee in German. 4. Dogwood Alliance. 5. Equity Group Foundation, nicknamed EGF. 6. Environmental Paper Network, nicknamed EPN. 7. Natural Resources Defense Council, nicknamed NRDC. 8. Prakaunia Narzeks Wysokie Istot, which means Workshop for All Beings in Polish. 9. Rachel Carson Council. 10. Solutions for Our Climate, nicknamed SFOC.
Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. Saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies which we will post for her here.
Hi. I am Leonie. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your local epidemiologist. The Midas Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times.
One introduction. Rosette view. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom. The Eco-Design Wood Stove International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. Rosette view. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.